Today, I am very excited, Adam, to be talking with you because we're going to be talking about a series that I hold dear.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
As do I, my friend. I got plasmids galore. I got them for days, man.
I don't know what a plasmid is.
Okay, well...
I think everyone has wanted to see a sequel for this game for a long time. And of course, the game we're talking about is BioShock.
BioShock! I'm still waiting on the Vita version.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Somewhere out there. It's floating somewhere
out there.
In
the ether of video game logic.
Before we get into creating a brand new BioShock, we have to ask the question we ask every single episode. Why this game?
BioShock is an incredibly important franchise. Adam, would you not agree with that statement?
I would certainly agree with that. I would agree that, or I would add to that we haven't heard about BioShock games in a while.
Oh, yeah.
And people are starting to talk about them a little more nowadays, but we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yes.
Why this game? We need to get the ball rolling with what exactly BioShock or Shock games are as a whole, right?
Yeah,
So
I guess people don't really consider all these Shock games as like a connected property.
I think we're the only people that have described the series as Shock games.
Yeah, probably. So folks, for those of you that don't know, BioShock isn't technically the first Shock game. The first one would be System Shock that was released on DOS, and then there was System Shock 2 that was released on PC as well. Those two games are first-person games. I've played them. Adam, have you?
Oh yeah, I've dabbled, not with System Shock 1, but System Shock 2.
Okay, so I'm glad you didn't play the first one.
Oh, well.
That's hard to play.
Yeah, it's a little tough to get my hands on something there. But you can see a bit of a through line with those titles into BioShock. So I do think they're kind of worth mentioning.
Yes.
So from System Shock to BioShock, you get some sort of similarities in gameplay. They're from the first-person perspective.
Yeah.
They have RPG elements.
Heavy RPG elements.
And I would say that, again, no, I haven't dabbled much with the first System Shock, but I can vouch for the second. There's interesting characters and stories that are a little bit more compelling than their contemporaries at the time.
Yes. System Shock 1, you have to read a lot more. System Shock 2, you have to read even more, but those background stories, those narratives and everything, the villain of that universe is really interesting. I really don't want to spoil System Shock 2 because I still think people can play that, and we are seeing remakes of those first two games.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Kind of not remakes, but like remasters, re-envisions of them.
Yeah.
And the interface of both those games is a little bit complicated, and it's way worse than the first one, easier in the second. But that's why BioShock, I think, had such a massive impact. BioShock, the original, came out on PC and Xbox 360. And when it came out on Xbox 360, the one thing they had to do was take the complexity of System Shock and the way that you control things and make it simple and easy to play.
Yeah.
And they hit the nail on the head.
Oh my gosh, absolutely they did. BioShock, which it was one of the first titles I got for my Xbox 360 back in the day.
Yeah.
Being able to jump into a first-person RPG like that and have the HUD and other elements just like work so seamlessly.
Yes.
It seemed like I know people say this all the time with the new generation of consoles. It seemed like this was a new breath of life within console gaming for myself.
Oh, yeah. One of the things that I loved about BioShock was that the entire feel of it is 1960s, late 50s kind of feel to it. It's got this very Ayn Rand.
Ayn Rand.
Yeah. I always forget that author's name. Atlas Shrugged kind of feel to it. You've got this really beautiful aesthetic, but the way the water plays in every bit of the game always makes you constantly aware that you are underwater. You're not above ground because BioShock takes place underneath the ocean, where System Shock took place in space.
Yes.
BioShock was like, well, let's just go all the way to the bottom of water.
Yeah, we went all the way up. We're going to go all the way down now. And the very first moments of that game are so unforgettable.
Yeah.
We won't talk about too much story.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it because I still feel those games are way more than playable.
Absolutely play these titles if you haven't had a chance to. But the moment you're diving down in the bathysphere for the very first time, and the city in BioShock is called Rapture, when you're going down and Rapture's unveiled to you and you see sea life and
Andrew Ryan's voice is speaking to you through this recording.
Right.
It's so That's one of the most cinematic scenes I've ever seen
Absolutely.
in any video game I've ever played.
It may be one of the intros to a video game that I've replayed the most because it still gives me that feeling of like excitement and anxiousness, and there's just the game has a tone, a feel to it, and it all explodes in those first minutes of the game. And oh my gosh, if there is a game to point to say a setting can be a character, BioShock, and I would argue the BioShock series as a whole, any of those titles, Rapture in all its forms and beyond, to Columbia. Those settings they're characters.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So BioShock 1 had a specific team working on it. BioShock 2 had a completely different team working on it. BioShock 2, actually, because BioShock 1 has multiple endings, BioShock 2 takes place kind of in a specific ending, maybe, but it's really more of a continuation of what BioShock 1 was. And the original creators not being a part of that, many people tend to look at BioShock 2 as not an actual part of the real story of BioShock.
It reviewed favorably. There was some backlash back in the day. I don't know if it was because people knew that Ken Levine, the sort of lead writer / designer on the original BioShock, wasn't really involved with the second one, if that was why. But I feel like that game has rubber banded back into being spoken about quite positively.
It plays great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It plays great. It has wonderful action. It introduced multiplayer to the title, and it kind of sort of worked. And I'm going to just put this out there. BioShock 2 feels like one of our next game pitches.
Yeah.
Because in BioShock, there are these gigantic lumbering beast characters that are kind of working on Rapture, this underwater city that they're called Big Daddies. And you fight them in the first BioShock, and you're like, whoa, those things are so cool. They're walking tanks. I want to be one.
Yeah.
So like that's where my brain would have went for my next game pitch.
And they did that. It did it very well. It
Yeah.
has a really neat story. The only problem being is that a lot of folks out there that are following Ken's vision didn't follow through with that. So BioShock Infinite comes out. BioShock Infinite takes place in the sky.
Yes.
So not as high as space, but just in between the ocean. So we're somewhere in the middle.
You can almost see the pitch meeting where they're like, we went the highest, we went the lowest. Let's go the mediumist.
The mediumist. It's a great game.
Yeah.
The opening sequence of that to me has the same impact as the first BioShock.
Yeah.
It pulls you along. There's this wonderful use of music and it's out of time and out of place. It doesn't make sense, but the more you play, the more everything you see comes together.
Yep.
And it's just a great game. It also had kind of a rocky development cycle. So there was a lot of things that were promised of that game, including like this massive multiplayer thing that never came to fruition. But what we got in the end was a solid game. But I will say this. All the BioShock games, no matter which one I've played, I've never been a fan of the endings. Even though there's multiple paths and stuff like that and multiple endings in some of the games, all the DLCs, everything, I've never been a fan of the endings. I always feel like the games do so much and give you so much at the beginning, but at the very end, it just kind of crashes for me.
I would say for a standard game, the endings would be fine, but because the watermark is so high because of the atmosphere, the characters are fantastic, and the worlds that they create are just so wonderful that you're like, oh really? You don't stick the landing. You're so close.
This is a personal thing for me. I don't know how many other people out there, like everyone that plays these games, maybe really love the whole thing from beginning to end.
Yes.
I loved these games. It's just that last bit, you're right, fails to land. Just for me, it's just one of those things where I'm like,
I was more of a fan of Infinite's ending than the first BioShock's ending, but there were issues with it. Again, we won't get into it. What I like about most BioShock games is that there's usually something that happens, I don't know, around the halfway mark or 3/4 mark that sort of like blows your mind a little bit within the games.
It's the switch, right?
Yeah. Sometimes
there's a twist.
There's a story twist or a gameplay twist or an element that's added where you're like, oh, that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
One thing that I really loved, we're talking about Infinite, and it's going to feed into my pitch, so I'm just going to mention it anyway, is the tears that are created within that world. Tears are these portals that one of the characters can open so that you can bring in ammo, items, you can interact with worlds from the future. They're pretty cool.
Saying it's some kind of multiverse of madness or something like
or
that.
Star Fox Omniverse of madness.
That is one of the things.
They were doing it.
They were doing it.
They were doing it before it was big.
Yes, that's true. Well, at least before massive media caught on to it, because it was in comics for a while. That aspect of BioShock Infinite is actually one of my favorite things. I don't want to really spoil too much about BioShock Infinite, but there's music that plays that it's one of my favorite things. They play songs from bands from the time period BioShock Infinite takes place, but the songs they're playing are from like future time periods.
Yes.
And there's a reason why that happens.
Right.
And that's what I love about those games. There's tiny bits of narrative spread throughout that you can pull in and read and understand. And it gives you this rich tapestry. And I love that. System Shock did that as well, but I don't think they did it nearly as well as what you got from BioShock Infinite. That one was premiere. That was the best way they covered that.
And without digging too deep into it, the Infinite and the first BioShock do tie into each other in some really interesting ways. So if you are interested in those games, play them. And then some of the weirdness that we're talking about right now that you're probably scratching your head, like, oh, songs and what tears, what's going on? If you play them, you'll see. Just do it.
Yeah,
just do it.
That's what
and then finish this episode of next game.
So look, these are big games. We know people like them a lot, but we've heard rumors that they're making a new BioShock. We've heard rumors that that the original developer or the original creator of the series is actually making a completely different game that isn't BioShock related. So we know
we saw a trailer.
Yeah, we know things are happening. We know things are going down in some strange path, but we still felt like there was a time for us to look at what we liked from those previous games and still pitch something that we thought could be a future entry in the series.
Are you saying that it's that time?
I think it is.
Gotta pitch another game.
Yes. Folks, now it's time to talk about the next game.
All right, Shane, so it's time for you to pitch your game.
Yes.
You got a trailer for me?
Yes, I do. You ready?
Let's go.
Okay, here we go.
News of the world for October 1919. Mr. John H. Wunder announces his brand new theme park in upstate New York. To all who come to this marvelous place, welcome. Wonder World is yours. Enter here with body and spirit bound to known reality. However, once you pass inside these walls, that surrounding park, you may savor the promise of unknown talents. Wonder World is dedicated to human potential, untapped and rich, boundless. Guaranteed, when you stay within my world, you shall know power hidden within and what humanity's future may hold. The park is designed by the mysteriously unknown Mr. Wonder, a recluse who is rumored to be the beneficiary of an inheritance that has provided him the means to create his Xanadu. The attraction of this northern amusement is said to be that for all those who visit are promised something incredible, impossible abilities beyond their wildest dreams. Flight, breathing underwater, movement at amazing speeds, strength to lift up a boulder. Mr. Wonder himself is quoted as saying, quote, "Things believed to be impossible are here the possible, but these feats are bound by the confines of the park. And once you leave, you and all those who visit shall return to normalcy." End quote. How does it all work? What smoke and mirrors tactics are being employed? Only Mr. Wonder knows for certain. This has been News of the World.
We pull back out of a flickering movie projector screen and continue to pull back, revealing a broken open building with a massive scene landscape, revealing a theme park ravaged by flames and smoke. Crowds of people running, some incredibly fast. And are people flying? Screaming is coming from every direction, but it all suddenly stops when a castle near the center begins to crack open. With white steam shooting out from its tallest tower, a deafening sound of a train whistle blares across the entire park. Cut to black. Title card. SteamShock. That's the pitch.
Okay. I was scared that you were going to call it BioShock Wonder World, because for a moment there, we almost
Wunder with a W, with a U. Wonder World. Yeah.
Got to be hyper specific on that, my friend, because my jaw started like
Wunder.
Yeah. Wonder World.
Exactly like that.
Sure.
So, this basically is how I want this game to go. Okay. Now, despite what the world thinks it knows about Mr. Wunder, we've got the inside scoop. The Mr. Big Fun theme park is very much recluse, that much is true, but one with connections, impressive connections. He's managed to convince several large organizations to invest in a theme park without himself investing a dime. But they're not interested in bumper cars and Ferris wheels. They're interested in these mythical powers that he's created. And that's kind of the focus of this. Whatever these powers are, everyone is interested in them. Now, the park is not open yet, and, well, not to the public anyway. They're having a single pre-opening day for all the investors and their many employees to come explore the park. But you don't really work for any of these people. So you found a way to get a ticket from one of these employees and you're kind of sneaking your way in. You shouldn't be there, but you want to go there because you are a journalist and you're trying to figure out the secret behind Mr. Wonder and all of his weird promised powers.
Oh, I see. It feels almost like a Jurassic Park-like scenario.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the reporter going in, but the disaster
Yes.
that ensues.
But unfortunately, on the first day of arrival, everyone gets these powers and they don't want to leave. I mean, they have flight, they can breathe underwater, they can pull things out of the ground with massive strength. Why would they want to leave? And that's what's going on. You're now stuck in this park with all of these crazy people. And that is the goal. You got to find out who Mr. Wonder is, maybe turn off these powers, and get out of town.
Okay. So is this taking place in any of the known BioShock locations? Like, is this a Rapture? Is this a Columbia? Is this somewhere entirely new?
I kind of don't, this doesn't really fit in between the narrative of the existing BioShock games, but because BioShock Infinite is sort of connected to BioShock, I thought this could be kind of connected in that universe.
Look,
if you've played BioShock Infinite, you know what I'm talking about.
You've already alluded to the fact that there's multiverses within BioShock, and there's different dimensions. It's not a spoiler. This could exist in one of those dimensions. I'll give you that.
That's what I'm saying. Yes.
I'll give you that.
Any game could really take place in BioShock Infinite universe, but I'm just saying in this specific instance, it's one of those things. You might see characters that are references to other characters and stuff like that, like maybe one of these organizations that benefited this park could have been run by Andrew Ryan, right?
Why?
There's just those ideas. I want that kind of confluence of ideas, characters but presented in new and different ways. So yeah. Now, features. Back of the box features.
Yes. 3 back of the box features that are going to sell me and everyone else on the game you're pitching.
Yes. So my first feature, a fully working theme park. Now, this is super important to me, okay? I know this sounds crazy, but I want every ride, everything in this theme park to be fully functional. I want the player to be able to walk up to anything and do anything they see in the theme park. So that includes kind of like the Disneyland inspired scenario. If there's a Ferris wheel, you can ride the Ferris wheel. If there is a dark ride where you're going in a boat, you can go on the boat through the entire thing. I want the world being described to you from all of these rides. I kind of love that BioShock beginning with the bathysphere.
Yes.
I want that to happen again and again and again. I want these rides to be just like the original Disney World, kind of financed and backed by other third-party companies.
Yeah.
So maybe you've got this one company that's entire history is described through this ride. I want those things to be a part of it because it's so important to me that this feels like a legitimate theme park. And when you get there for the beginning, nothing's wrong. It's a real theme park. Everything's cool. Everything's fine. You're going to have one full day to walk around this entire theme park, go everywhere, do everything, mini games, tons of all this stuff just all over the place to make it feel like its own individual game. If you bought this game, if you bought SteamShock, you don't even have to go beyond this. You can just spend the entire game walking around exploring a real theme park that is built in its own universe. And I thought that would be really, really fun.
Wow. That is a very brave thing to do in what is typically a sci-fi action title.
Yeah.
First day's roller coaster tycoon.
Yes.
Second day, all hell breaks loose, basically.
Right. In this world, at the very beginning, we're talking about like these mythical powers that you'd be getting, right? The theme park rides are one thing, but the mythical powers are locked off into certain areas of the park. So you'll be able to actually do little flight games or strength training games. Like, for instance, there's going to be a rail yard in the theme park. So can you run faster than a speeding locomotive? That kind of stuff. That's the idea. I really, really desperately wanted to make this park feel like it's a real place with these additional little features all over, and having those like superpowers and then seeing how they're implemented into the theme park rides. I thought that would be pretty fun.
So in the original BioShock, you had, like you were saying, the moments where you'd get people sort of describing the world to you that were interspersed throughout the action and stuff. And that was sort of what created a lot of tension and things. Are you able to like clear all of the story plot lines in the Happy Sunny world? And there's no like, there were splicers, which were like deranged mutants in the original game that were kind of like messing around with you while you were listening to lore. That made it a little more exciting.
Basically, I want this first day to feel like everyone is happy and everyone's excited to see all this stuff. I want all these, because remember, the only people that are showing up are people that are working for organizations that have funded this park. So they kind of have an investment in this park. So they want to be super positive about what they're doing. And they're seeing these other companies that are competition on the market. So, I want this to feel like you're hearing all these people talking, you're getting all this backstory, but I don't want a single gun risen. I don't want any of that at the beginning.
What could be kind of cool is to have the contrast of, when things are nice on the first day and then being able to go back to those the second or third day, or like when things happen and it's completely different because of all the havoc that's gone on around.
So, feature 2, the world unravels.
Okay.
All right. With each passing day, the park devolves further into madness. Remember, no one's leaving because once they've gotten these powers on, they're like, if I leave, I'm going to lose these powers. Why would I want to leave?
It's like me at Disney World, man. It's not powers. It's those freaking Mickey bars. I'm there, man. I don't want to leave.
Previous attractions and rides begin to get warped into battlegrounds with competing companies. So some companies like hunker down at like one of those parks that are one of the areas of the parks that has a superpower, and they lock that power. That's their power. No one else can get it. So that kind of stuff starts to happen. The game is going to simulate resource depletion and management. So this is important to me. When the world goes crazy, typically when you see these games, what they do is they create the same kind of scenario every time. Every time you go to play the game, you always see the same thing break down the exact same way because it's preordained. You walk through the street and that building's going to blow up. Every time you walk through that street, every time you play the game, that building is going to blow up because it's just the way the narrative is going to grow. It ends with this game. How it's going to work is if you cut the power, rides stop working. Cut food supplies, groups starve and head to locations looking for food. Cut water lines and the fire suppression systems stop working. Set fires to buildings, the buildings burn to the ground, leaving nothing but ash and rubble. So what's important to me is that when you play this game, if you are facing this like group of people who have these superpowers that are capable of like destroying a brick wall, if that brick wall is destroyed because you did something in the path of events that caused that brick wall to be broken, it's going to change the way that the narrative grows out. So for example, the beginning of the game begins, you're seeing the world in perfect harmony, everything is fine. People are stuck in this place and resources are not coming in. So maybe the water is being pumped from the ground wells and that water is not going to go out, but food is going to become scarce. What happens when people start riding around and trying to figure out what they're doing? If you if you for some reason burn a building down that has like all of the food, suddenly people are going to start getting very desperate. What does that look like? And that's what I want this game to feel like. You're stuck in this very closed off world, but the world is insanely interactive.
Okay. Is there like a hunger management system for yourself as well as how the other people interact?
I would absolutely hate having anything like that. I don't want to worry about.
I mean, you make the game the way you want to make the game.
I don't want us to be managing our own food and hunger. I hate when people do that in games because I'm hungry and thirsty myself. I don't need my game to tell me that I'm hungry and thirsty. This is just you're dealing with these crowds. All this group, like when people go in, let's think of it this way. All these companies that bring these employees in, they all have a set number of tickets they're allowed to bring in. Each company has a set number of employees. Throughout the course of the game, if something happens to one of those groups, those people die, they're not coming back. And they have limited amounts of resources themselves. So everyone is kind of fighting out and whatever. Everybody essentially wants these powers. And these companies have locked themselves down in specific parts of the park and are using those powers to their advantage. So maybe the people that have the strength find it very easy to take tons of like boxes of food and bring it back. But the people that have speed can run back and forth really quick and get a bunch of teeny individual items of food really quickly. But the people that can breathe underwater that took that power, well, what do? You would I don't know, maybe fill up that entire section where there's all this food with water so that those people can't go in. It's this competition between these powers and how these companies kind of like fight against each
Okay.
other. And I love
So
seeing this idea devolve into madness as you're watching.
there's a lot of cause and effect going on here.
Yes.
In these scenarios, could you, as the Avatar player, just sit back and just watch chaos happen?
You could. I'm not saying you can't, but the thing is, I don't think you don't want to do that, because if you sat alone and you didn't accumulate any of these powers yourself, suddenly you're going to have these like super powered beings running around thinking you work for one of these companies.
You can't just hide in a dumpster, Shane.
You can't just hide in a
Okay,
dumpster.
I gotcha.
Because the dumpster is going to get destroyed.
Okay.
So that's the idea, growth and stuff like that. Now, this is important. Feature 3, multipath story. Now, because we're having these big battles happening, I wanted to make sure that the story breaks down in very specific ways. Let's say you side with one company over another company. If you help that company expand, their narrative is going to be the thing that kind of like goes to the entire park. If the owners of these companies are at the park, and they are, and those owners die, well, then suddenly that company loses all those value. All their value. They don't have any vision. They lack resources. Maybe the people that were working for that company go to work for another one. What I really wanted to do was create a Wild West theme park. Not an actual Wild West theme park, just like a crazy theme park,
Right.
where anything that you could want to happen could happen. You could be a conniving, scheming person that like burns a building, not telling anybody, and you know that there's something in that building that's going to cause problems. If somebody has these like these abilities and powers that other people want, and you want them first, maybe you find a way to steal it before anyone else does. You can become the ultimate like being, taking all these powers and stealing them for yourselves, or sharing it out with everybody, or possibly bartering a solution between all of the companies to be at peace and go after the person that stuck them here in the first place, Mr. Wunder.
Okay, so is this your end game?
Yeah.
Is you're supposed to be going after this Mr. Wunder guy?
Yes.
Okay.
So Mr. Wunder, after basically these people stopped, like it didn't want to leave, and they're trying to leave with the powers, he's raised some kind of field of energy around the park that isn't allowing people to leave. And that field of energy isn't anything
I
crazy.
call it saran wrap, and no
Yeah.
one can get beyond it, especially you muscly folks over there.
It's literally a wall of steam. Hot, unpenetrable steam that no one can get past.
Same thing, sure.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
He's created some power to do that. Nobody knows what it is. Does he have some power nobody else knows about? We have to figure it out.
Seems good with powers.
Yeah.
Sure.
We need to know who he is, how he created all this stuff, and where it came from.
Yes.
And that opening piece of dialogue you heard at the beginning where he was like inviting everybody, that's the dialogue that Walt Disney gave, kind of like changed a little bit. Is Walt Disney here? Are people that are filled with like these like huge like triumph, all these people that have had so much power and influence over the next couple of decades, are they involved in this somehow? I really wanted to have this like really weird thing where you kind of see the influence of interesting technologies that come in the next couple of decades kind of begin here somehow, and these companies that spread out take some of these ideas, or you've done something and got rid of all these companies where they don't prosper and they don't spread out.
Yeah, whatever happens, like you will be the one sort of holding the chalice through the game. It's going to go this way or this way. You're going to sort of sway factions and stuff. I think that's cool. I always thought that, now that you bring up Walt Disney, I always thought that Andrew Ryan kind of reminded me of a Walt Disney figure.
Yes.
This feels like a cool evolution of that style of character.
BioShock's Rapture felt like a theme park.
Yeah, totally.
The World of Infinite felt like a theme park. Those things I really liked, but what I really wanted to do is just be like, why don't we just go straight theme park? Why don't we just go completely in that direction where you are kind of locked in this world? There's a game I played on the NES a long time ago called Magic Kingdom. Did you ever play that from Capcom?
Magic Kingdom, it's a Disney joint, I'm sure. No, I haven't played it.
It's basically like, it's not an RPG. It's an adventure game where you walk around the theme park, and it's like the actual Disney theme park. You're like completing really tiny things, like talking to people at certain points, and you can go into a ride, and when you go to that ride, it turns into a 2D platformer. Or if you go into a different ride, it's a space flying game, like a space shoot 'em up game in first person. That was all done on the NES, and it was a really fun game. And I was like, man, I kind of want that again. But with a weird, strange world that isn't bound by any one IP. So that's what this is. It's basically this whole thing where you have this whole world that's fully explorable, feels like a real theme park, and you can choose to make it live and survive or completely burn it to the ground. It's all your control. It's like an ultimate theme park sandbox.
That sounds very compelling. It's quite the pitch.
Yes. Well, that is my pitch, but now we have to hear, Adam, what your pitch is.
Oh, it's the exact same thing.
Oh, just dang.
Spat right back to you.
No!
I'm ready. Before I get into it, I just want to say, when I think of a BioShock game,
Yeah.
I think of some of the things we mentioned before, great characters, amazing setting or location, unforgettable. And I think of Americana. We didn't really mention this that much, but it is important within BioShock. Everything feels very American, especially with BioShock Infinite. But in the original BioShock as well, we get that classic American accent. We get the Art Deco style that was sort of famous back in the 1940s, I believe, back then. Okay. Shane, do you know what an outrider is?
No, I don't.
Okay. So an outrider is someone that goes ahead and ensures the safety of someone that's coming behind them, basically. Okay. So you think about like, I don't know, like a political figure has security that walks in front of them or whatever.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right. So with that being said, Europe, the 13th century, a mounted outrider clad in clean armor gallops into the morning horizon. His pace slows as he breathes in the distance. The air hums and crackles towards him. An alien sound. The warrior fidgets, tightens the grips of his reins. He motions at the space behind him, and a band of horseback warriors, other outriders, form at his sides. They're ready. The assembly files forward. They trot through green, static-laden fields into the looming shadows of a structure they only half comprehend. A perfect, stone-laden rampart with glowing inserts. It stretches along the rolling countryside forever. This way, that way, forever. I told you, no gate, a soldier declares. Not here, or there, apparently. There's a way in, another chimes. No gate, no door, no one, the first man scoffs. The group stirs. They shuffle and march the endless perimeter. A great distance from that barrier, weird edifices extend to heights that shrug detail. Below the monoliths, clashes of stone, wood, and glass form angular patchwork villages. Settlements entangled with metallic tubing as wide as the band of cavalrymen standing at arm's length. Long tubes. What do you suppose is in there? I don't know. The rumors are true, though, right? Look at this place. I don't know. It's as they say, the heavens poured on them, dropped something. That's what they told us, right?
I don't know.
I don't know. The ground quakes, and the great stone enclosure lumberingly separates, kicking up dust. The horses whinny and dance back as the space beyond the parting barrier is revealed. Gaping darkness. Nothing greets the baffled soldiers except an unfamiliar bright flag streaming from atop the opening. The group recalibrates, exchanges looks, and then a small metallic voice rings out.
Help, please.
It says,
I'm scared.
A cavalryman wastes no time. He clicks his tongue and trots forward, fading into that dark space.
Help, I'm scared.
Ooh. A great moan shakes from the emptiness. What could that be? Don't say it. Ah!
I know what it is.
The piercing, wet squeal of that soldier blares, then is cut short. His mount screeches from the darkness, splashed crimson. It tears past the rest of the stone-cold group of cavalrymen as their horses bray and recoil.
Mr. Bubbles, help! I'm scared.
Boom! 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 The ground lurches below the cavalry. Mashing steps sound from the cave. 8 bright yellow circles glow. The lost cavalryman floats back into the morning light, shedding darkness as his torso heaves forward, gored on an enormous lance. His body lifts effortlessly until his crooked face is draped in the red, white, and blue of the rampart flag. This is BioShock Spangled Keep.
Ooh, okay. So, Um, we are in the past, clearly in this one.
We're in the 13th century.
Yes.
That's correct.
But
there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
So in Spangled Keep, you play as an outrider, a forefront warrior ushering the military of the crown in a divine campaign to pierce and unlock the secrets of a powerful, otherworldly city turned fortress, the Spangled Keep. The Keep is home to an Americana and future tech worshipping religious sect called the Founders.
Okay. So for those that may not remember from
Yes.
the original BioShock, there was these specific characters that walked around that were big hulking behemoths that were incredibly hard to take down.
Yeah, we mentioned them. They
Yeah.
were big daddies.
Yes.
There will be big daddies, but I'll get to that.
Okay.
So what's going on? We're in the past. There's how did America get here? We're in Europe.
Time machines?
Well, we did talk about one particular thing. So
Yeah, those little warp. Yeah.
let me talk about some of the rumors that had persisted throughout the years in the 13th century.
Okay.
Well, it's said that decades before this military campaign began, when the Outriders were sent out, locals witnessed the skies open and bleed magic into the countryside. Incredible things poured out: crumbling manors and foreign alloys and literature, pristine fires that wouldn't fade, potions of strength and magic. Can't guess what those are, can you? Unspeakable golems with impossible weapons, too much to believe. But rumors persisted. They said a leader, the founding father of this black magic dump, convinced the people of the land of its divinity. It's a blessing, one that can and should be used. It came from above. As the people of the founding father worshipped and recobbled the advanced magics and alchemy divinely heaved at them, a secret city was formed, the Spangled Keep. A hive of structures weaving incredible stone slabs, enormous metal pipelines, and stretches of thick, encompassing glass. Glass wasn't around all that much back then.
No.
Maybe a little bit here or there. As this civilization grew, it turtled inward. Very familiar for BioShock, the series. Violently pushing away the outside world, leaving the leaders, eventually, of the country no choice but to intervene, to investigate. So here we are. So what's happened here, Shane? BioShock Infinite introduced new dimensions and timelines. We talked about them.
Correct, yep.
For your title as well, your pitch. So there's a way that these different BioShock games are interacting between one another with these portals that we've talked about called tears, right? There was a machine that was developed and later sabotaged within BioShock Infinite that could produce these tears, but other characters can make tears as well. The sabotage is basically, you're going to find out throughout the game, but the sabotage is what has caused this sort of corruption, this sort of like weird dump that's happening. Did it only happen once? Is it still happening? Is there still a connection between the Founders and the other BioShock worlds? We don't know. So the game is about a medieval land that has incredible technology plop into their lap. They don't know where it's from. They don't know America. They've never even heard of America. As far as they know, someone just liked them and sent them stuff that looked cool.
Yes.
And they decided this is our religion now.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
So these tear-ripped portions of BioShock Infinite, so Rapture, Columbia, and maybe even BioShocks we've never even played.
Okay.
Because there's multi-universes.
There is multi-universes,
Other technologies as well. The Society is basically dissecting them and interpreting and attempting to use them in any way that they can to make their society function and to make it better, right? Because these are technologies that are vastly out of their reach, right?
Sure.
With technology, usually we have these steps.
Yes.
You know, this makes that, makes that.
But if you jump so far ahead, I mean, a light bulb would look like you're a wizard to
Exactly.
somebody back then.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So it's medieval Europe entangled with the sci-fi Americana of BioShock. So
that's actually really neat.
Yeah, did you like it?
It reminds me a lot of like, it's the time periods aren't correct, but Army of Darkness.
That's what I was gonna, dude. That was in my pitch. I was like, do you want to know what it's like? It's like when Ash makes his hand in Army of Darkness, and everyone's like, how did he make his hand? He just had a science book. It's like that.
Yes.
So did you just like throw out all of the whatever? Like,
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Any sort of sanity, and you got Spangled Keep. Okay, back of the box. Number one, this is a bigger, more engaging, and explorable BioShock than ever before.
Okay.
Just huge, okay? So I had a problem with some of the BioShock games. Like yourself, you had some problems. One large problem I had, endings weren't great, but that wasn't my biggest issue. I love those settings. I love Rapture. I love Columbia. I want to feel more lived in, baked into those places. And those original BioShock games, they're very story driven and
they're linear.
They are linear. And it's not to say that every linear game's bad. They want to tell a story a specific way. That's fine. My game's not doing that. Okay. There is some linearity. There is a main through line in Spangled Keep, but I want to make this things bigger and better than ever. So you're going to have this wonderful location, just crazy, insane location. You have this group of people that doesn't know what the heck they're doing, but they're making it work with all the crazy things that they've cobbled together from underwater on top of the earth in England, or maybe not England.
Yes.
In Europe.
Somewhere in Europe.
Right. I want to leave it.
When we hear them talking, we'll know what the language is. Then we'll kind of know
I try not to do an accent.
Yeah.
I tried not to do an accent. Anyway, so they're cobbling together all these things. They're attempting to create a society that's intermingling in the things that they love, or the things that they know from the 13th century with the 1910s, with the 1960s. You got your Art Deco, your colonialist looks. These buildings are all sort of like patchwork slabbed together, right? But expect elements not to work in these cities properly because they don't know what the heck an elevator is. Yeah. Maybe it doesn't know to like stop properly and just flings you into the air. There could be explosions at any time in the city, and it's literally like it's a Tuesday.
If somebody, this is a great example. I love this idea because there is something about it that just makes a lot of sense. If you had a bazooka and it was just a hollow tube, right, and you brought it back to like farmers in the 1300s, right. They would probably be like, well, that's just where you put all the straw so that you can carry it along.
Sure.
They don't have
or
any
the
ammo
wife would
for
be
it.
like, oh man, this would be a great rolling pin for like a huge sheet of cookie dough. That's exactly the vibe that I'm going for here. Okay. So like I said, there is going to be a main narrative. You are going to have a through line where you're trying to go after the tyrannical founding father, the first person that found this technology that came from these tears. He's the one that's established this religion. He's the one that has gathered followers around him that have this Americana lust and feel like this is divinity sort of speaking to them, right?
Who's the character from It's a Little Mermaid that it's like the Little Mermaid is being explained what a fork is, and it's actually like a comb, and there's the seagull.
Oh, is it Sebastian? No, that's the crab. It's the seagull.
Scuttle. Our producer off screen is telling us Scuttle. Okay, that is your entire game.
Yes.
It's basically all these people getting those items and being like, well, this thing I called a Doofenheimer. And it's like a hammer, but it's actually just a gun.
That's right. That's right. Now picture that and picture an entire enormous monumentous city that just cobbled together with these things, not just guns, but other things too.
Yeah.
So yes, there's going to be a through line within this city of trying to basically take down the founder, the head honcho. But there's going to be other stuff to do as well. Like I said, this is going to be the biggest BioShock game ever. So you're going to be going on side quests as well. You're going to be intermingling with NPCs. You're going to feel like you're becoming or getting to learn more and more about this strange society. Maybe not everyone in this place is terrible, despite the fact that they've been aggressively pushing people away, and there's a lot of mystery. There's variable sort of like complexities to characters, just like in real life, real people. So you can form bonds with NPCs, do things for them. The world itself is going to be so large that you're going to actually be able to go outside of the Spangled Keep itself if the side quests deem you to do so. But you need some way to get around, right? Well, that's where the coolest thing about sort of scaling and traversing the complexity of this place comes into play. Some of the technology that was first created for BioShock Infinite, the city that floats in the sky, has been cobbled together in a very, very crude metal steed. You, as an Outrider character, get to ride a metal steed. In select areas, there are places where you can't do it necessarily, but if you're outside of the keep, let's say, the chances are you can be on your steed.
Okay.
And I also spoke about that tubing earlier, the super wide tubing. Guess what you're going to be riding in there? So you're going to have fast... You're riding the
Rideable tubes within the tubes.
You're riding the steed. So you're going to be able to traverse, and it's going to be super cool when you're traversing through the tubes. Picture like an F-Zero style, like 360 kind of thing. Windows.
Ballistics.
It's not all just, dark and gloomy.
I just mentioned a game I don't think anyone's played. It's called Ballistics.
Okay.
And that's basically it's a racing game that takes place in a tube.
Picture Sonic 2, the special bonus stages, but put another bonus stage on top and then give it windows.
Yes.
Also, Tails isn't there. Okay, so.
But you're saying Sonic is.
No. We're not having another one of those. So, you got a steed, all right? Huge world. You're able to traverse it. I'm not going to give you a metal steed and tell you can't joust in a game that's in the 13th century about knights. You can joust.
Yeah.
You can get a lance, and it can be an offensive capability. Okay, that is back of the box point number 1. Back of the box point number 2. So. Go medieval on your foes, new offensive abilities. This is a BioShock game, so you better believe there's an arsenal of cool weapons that can be adopted and tweaked from the founders. And these things are going to be sloppy. You're going to find a pistol. You're going to find a grenade launcher. You're still going to have variable ammos like you did in the other BioShock games. But what is going to be more readily accessible to you is kind of what's more readily accessible in that era. So you're going to be using your bowgun quite a bit. But the great thing about this bowgun is that because the founders are dealing with different types of technology, it's a souped up bowgun and you can do different things with it, right? You got your standard shot. You got your automatic bowgun, which is like a machine gun bowgun. Say that 3 times fast.
That's pretty hard.
And you also have a spread bowgun, which is like a shotgun. Again, I'm not taking away your guns. They're there. But I would imagine that the scarcity of that ammunition is probably a little more scarce than you're used to.
And who knows how to make those things work? Like you wouldn't know.
One dude just, he looked right in the barrel and problems.
Yeah, well,
problems.
The one guy looked in the barrel, it fired, and it was like, and everyone that was watching was like, well, you shouldn't do that.
I don't know what that's for. Maybe it's for cutting paper or something. I don't know. It seems to go through things really well. So they don't know. Okay, so besides the bowgun, you're an outrider. You're a knight. You're a knight that's basically in this keep because there's an army that's coming in a few days, and you want to make sure that you can get intel and that you can sort of learn about the keep while you're there. That's your main mission at the very beginning of the game. But as things unravel, you turn into a one-man army. These things just kind of happen, right? In BioShock
you become more
games,
powerful. You always do, yeah.
Right. So as you're going through, you're an outrider. You get plasmids. Plasmids are here. Vigors are here. They may be called something else because we are in a different society that just gets these bottles falling down, right? You have your classic vigors. You can use telekinesis, incinerate, winter blast, insect swarm. I love insect swarm. Who doesn't like a bunch of hornets or wasps coming out of your arm?
Specifically didn't want that in mind because I thought that looked gross.
Oh, it's great. But we're going to introduce some new things as well because despite the crudeness of this era, they have access to technology. They may not be the best at it, but every once in a while, they can get something right. They can make a steel horse. So you do get other plasmids and vigors, like Green Thumb, which allows you to ensnare enemies or interact with vegetation in the world. Corrode, acid. You can, let's say, spray acid on an enemy with armor. There may be an enemy with armor in this game.
Might be a couple.
Yes. Or you can corrode doors and get into other spaces as well. Again, I want you to be able to go around this gigantic world and not just like a through line to the founder or the founding father, I should say. So there's other things. You want to go around. You want to power up. There's Adam to be had in different places. Adam is the thing that you would use to upgrade your character in the original BioShock game. They may not call it that in this game. Okay, so you have different vigors. Okay, cool. Yeah, bowgun. All right, yeah, we had a bowgun in at least one of those BioShock games. Been there, done that. I'd argue not, but you're also going to be able to do something super cool. You got a sword. You're an outrider. You're going to be getting close and personal with a lot of the vicious founders that are kind of out to get you as you're going around and collecting intel and stuff. You can take your sword and you can apply plasmids to your sword. Freaking lightsaber knights, man.
Yeah. Okay.
So
yeah.
You take Winter Blast, right? Winter Blast usually it spews out ice, right? You can use it in that way, the classic way, or you can imbue your sword with an ice-like shield that you can use to shield things. Picture like a shield.
Shield.
Yeah. Okay. Insect swarm. I get to imbue my sword with bees.
Yeah, that's
keep
somebody's nightmare right there.
You
Yeah.
stab someone, they're like, "Oh, that's the worst thing," and they start getting stung with bees from within that wound. And then he's like, "No, that's the worst. That's the worst thing, Shane." Okay, green thumb. Imbue your sword with vines that literally pull the enemy into your blade, man. Oh, disgusting. So, of course, you'll be able to augment your plasmids and your sword abilities and stuff. We're keeping the RPG elements here. This is going to feel a lot like a classic BioShock game, but you're going to be getting close and personal with people a little bit more, and you're going to love it. Back of the box, number 3, Big Daddy in shining armor. Oh my. You mentioned it before.
Yeah.
And I mentioned it before. BioShock
Well, when you made the noise, I knew there was going to be there's got to be at least one
You're like,
Big
there's
Daddy
either
somewhere.
a dying bear in this game or, no. So Big Daddies are, of course, a part of this game, as these different chunks of Rapture and Columbia and BioShock's Beyond are garbage dumped into this religious cult. Some of these critters come out as well, and they find ways to manipulate them. So you're going to wind up getting Big Daddies that are dotted in select corners of this world, and it's not just willy-nilly, let's say, because these Big Daddies are going to be almost like puzzles to take down. They're going to have different armor sets. They're going to have different weapons. But I'm envisioning Big Daddies that look like freaking hulking knights with knights' armors, where the founders have plated them with this crazy medieval stuff. We're talking morning stars that are like the size of a car, a small car. Lances like I spoke about in the trailer, huge broadswords, and maybe even a trebuchet. I think that's what they call it.
The things that throw stuff far. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Catapult like stuff.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's better than a catapult, apparently. Okay, so when you take down these Big Daddies, you'll get things, right? These Big Daddies will supply you with equipables that will majorly help out your character. You'll be able to get that broadsword, and if you use a specific plasmid that give you super strength, you'll be able to wield that for a specific amount of time. Devastating, right? The trebuchet. Devastating, right? But you can also get things like a Big Daddy's helmet, which, if it is a more classical helmet from a Big Daddy, it'll help you breathe underwater infinitely. And there are underwater sections in this game. They are going to be testing out. They're still experimenting on technologies throughout the Spangled Keep. There's going to be underwater sections. Heck, there might even be some floating sections in the sky, because we're getting technologies from these different places, right? Those are my 3 back-of-the-box points. We're getting a huge medieval BioShock game with a sci-fi twist, as you said, kind of like Army of Darkness style.
Which I love.
And we're going to have a really great time. And we're going to have things link back into those original games and beyond in very interesting ways. Like I said, heck, maybe these portals never closed. Maybe the rumors about them closing were never true.
Okay, let's revisit our ideas one more time before we get to the next segment. My idea was called SteamShock. My first feature is a fully working theme park. My second feature is the world unravels. And my third feature is a multi-path story.
And my title's called BioShock The Spangled Keep. Feature number 1, a bigger, more engaging, explorable BioShock experience with horses. Feature number 2, go medieval on your foes. New offensive abilities. Swords, baby! 3, Big Daddy in shining armor. You're going to get great upgrades through battles with Big Daddies.
So, I have no idea how this is going to go because, well, it's very, very different ideas, honestly, when it comes down to it. Yours is going back way in the past, further than I think any of the Shock games have.
I would say it's a little more traditional BioShock, despite the setting being weird and some of the action being slightly tweaked. Yours is going in a very different direction, but some very cool ideas.
All right.
Very cool systems.
Now we get to see what our producer thinks in the next section, Producer Notes. And we're back. It's been a little bit of time, but we've actually found someone that is going to be taking a look at our pitches.
Oh, awesome. Well, who is our guest producer for today, Shane?
Our guest producer today is Brent Black, who also goes by the name Brentalfloss. If you want to check out his channel on YouTube, it's Brentalfloss, does these amazing musicals, and he actually did a musical about BioShock, like a musical piece.
He's extremely talented. I've been hearing his music for many years now.
Yes. Now, he knows a lot about BioShock, and we are very nervous because we don't know who's going to actually win this thing, but Brent does.
Yeah, can you take it away?
Hello, gentlemen. Much like your BioShock game pitches, I too am in a strange location I can't get out of that also made me have to do this on my phone. Anyway, hi, I'm Brent Black. I'm also known as Brentalfloss. They told me to do an intro. I don't even know if this is what I'm supposed to do, but here I am. Shane, Adam, hello. I've reviewed your pitches, and my first response is for Shane's game, SteamShock. My thoughts on this, I'd have to sum up by saying bold. The idea of having a fully functional theme park is bold. The idea of a whole first day to explore that doesn't seem to involve the main game mechanics until like the next day, also bold. A resource management mechanic rather than combat, also bold. I gotta say, the motivation of the main character is confusing. Like, he's stuck inside a wall of steam, can't escape, so that keeps him there. That makes sense. But he then becomes the force which makes this resource management work. Or, you know, when I think of resource management like Age of Empires or SimCity, I think about like an omnipotent arbiter that, you know, just like a godlike figure who makes all this stuff, or an emperor, you know, that makes all this stuff move around. BioShock 1 was about escaping and survival. BioShock Infinite was about fulfilling a mission by way of survival. And it's like, what is the motivation of this character to do all the stuff he's doing, especially if there's not a hunger meter? Is it just like curiosity and a love of Midway games? I'm sure you have an answer to that, but I didn't pick up on it. Or is it all just running around doing conversation trees to make different people and different companies do different things? I think switching from a chiefly combat and exploration game loop to a little bit more of like detective story journalism, but detective story / resource management game loop is so bold, it almost doesn't feel like a BioShock game. You know, I also played Adventures in the Magic Kingdom as a kid, and I feel like it's a far cry from a game that belongs on the BioShock shelf. Like, typically with games like that, and this is, you know, what could be a weakness of your game, there are a bunch of different mechanics you have to learn for all the different mini games, but none of them ends up having the depth and the polish that you'd expect from elements in a AAA game. So that could be a weakness. So in short, I think there are serious, bold choices here. The setting feels a lot like a BioShock game, the Americana, you know, a amusement park around 1919, very Americana, I think, Coney Island, that kind of thing. But the actual game's mechanics and the character's motivations don't feel as much like a BioShock game to me.
Okay, so
okay,
that was harsh criticism, but it's fair.
It's very, it's fair criticism. But you wanted to do something very different.
That's the goal.
He used the word bold, and I think it is the correct word to use. What are your overall sort of thoughts on this?
So I did want combat. Yes. I did want the character to have like a goal at the end and stuff like that. But see, that's the thing. I didn't contribute those things when talking about the pitch originally. There is supposed to be combat. There's supposed to be that stuff. But my goal was that I didn't want it to be combat focused. I want the player to have the ability to go through things without utilizing combat.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. My favorite part of BioShock Infinite is the beginning. It's not the middle part, which is the game. I actually like the beginning where you go around and you're exploring the world and you're seeing this rich texture of universe building. That's my favorite stuff.
Yeah. Well, maybe if you had tossed in a little bit more of the combat mechanics and gotten that across.
Oh, sure.
And maybe that would have changed the way that he's reviewed your pitch.
I was confident that this idea was going to be alienating because the idea that I'm trying to represent is we're not continuing BioShock. We're not going from the past. We're going somewhere in this weird position where BioShock is trying to become something else. And the character is trying to escape, but like, trying to control things at the same time. There's something weird going on with that character, and I didn't reveal what that was, but I feel like the game could work, but it's just describing that to people
I
so
know.
difficult.
This is really hard to do, right? You have an image in your mind and you're like, it's perfect. Everyone's
Right.
going to love
Yeah,
this.
right.
But when you actually pitch it, the picture that's up here is not necessarily the words that they're coming out as well. So yeah, it's hard to paint that picture sometimes.
Exactly. So, Brent, what did you think of his pitch?
And now for my thoughts on Adam's pitch. I have to say, there's sort of a out of left field vibe, particularly with the title Spangled Keep, which feels like, is it bold or is it silly? Kind of like Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. It's unique for sure. It just feels like it would either be made fun of as a title or become like unforgettably iconic and nothing in between. The idea of ancient people finding out how to work stuff we already know about in a combination of multiple worlds that we already know about, I love that. And I was thinking about Ariel and Scuttle and the Dingle Hopper before you even said it, Shane, so that was right on the money. The idea that what happened in past BioShock universes led to this directly and combines them in an unexpected way, I really like. And that makes it feel, unlike the medieval setting, which is like, what? It makes it feel more of a piece with the other BioShock games. I like the idea of jousting. No idea how to gamify it unless you're going to go like 2D side-on, like the literal game Joust. I like how it takes the existing mechanics of BioShock games and expands them. Of course, all the BioShock games have involved combat, exploration, story. Combat, exploration, story. But not always a lot of side quests and not with sprawling non-linear exploration. Yes, there's some of those things, some of those elements from the other BioShock games, but there's something so cramped about those spaces. So like, you're supposed to be here right now, and to get somewhere else can be difficult or impossible if there's point of no returns, or rather points of no return. So yeah, I like the idea of it being a little more Skyrim, a little more Breath of the Wild within the really interesting world you've built. I also don't understand what the character's motivation is going through this, and character motivation doesn't always matter in games. But with such a story-rich concept you've come up with, and the fact that BioShock games are always so story-rich, I want to know more in this pitch about, like, once it stops being about the big army that's coming, and we have to make sure this keep is ready for them, what continues to motivate? Maybe you hinted at that and I missed it, but I just want to know more about that if I'm going to buy this game. So in kind of a reverse of Shane's pitch, this one's setting, at least at first, does not feel BioShocky. It doesn't have that Americana, but whether or not that eventually works itself out, whether or not the Americana comes through in the combined universes, it does feel like a BioShock game, just expanded and with cool new stuff to do, but the old stuff that makes us feel like it is a BioShock game as well.
Okay.
So what do you think of that?
Yeah, so he had criticisms for both of us, where I think his worries on the Americana would be quelled if, like we were talking about before, if the picture in your mind only comes out as the words, right? Because this is a society completely obsessed with
Americana.
the American stuff that came through the portal.
The thing is, he had some good things to say, but some good criticisms.
Yes.
This truly can go in any direction
I
because
know.
of we
Absolutely.
I think if one of us gave more direction for the character, it probably would have been better
a steal?
off. Yeah.
It'd be a steal?
It probably would be, because
All right.
it's a character driven game.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brent, who won?
And the winner is Adam with BioShock Spangled Keep.
Adam wins.
You know what? Yes, okay, I won, but I don't feel like I won all that much.
No, I like that you won, because that idea of going to like medieval times is, look, here's a problem with mine, and I could not get around this. What he said, the Americana, I could not get out of Americana. I could not think of terms outside of that. So for my biggest problem with BioShock, for my pitch, was that time period is so close to infinite. It's not that far off. And I thought if you go earlier than that, the America that you would get wouldn't have that much technology, wouldn't work.
Yeah.
You blew past that and went to a place where, yeah, there is no technology, but like that. But what is there is going to be changed because of it. That, my friend, is BioShock.
I had those exact thoughts of like, oh, well, they went this far into the Americas here, or they did, whatever, the 40s or 50s Americana in the original BioShock. I was like, let's take the folks that would have maybe traveled to America way back when folks were first like colonizing and stuff. My history's terrible, by the way, so correct me if I'm wrong. But I was like, there's still like European folks came over, so like this is going back in a timeline that stretches even further back to a lineage of people that hasn't even made it to that continent yet. That was the sort of idea I was going for. Again, my history's terrible, so there could be a thousand things to say about that. But I wanted to kind of see what the disconnect of technology between these people in the future, getting their futuristic stuff to the past. What would happen there?
Absolutely.
I wanted to see the evolution of that.
I think that comes across in your pitch. I really do. I think that kind of stuff, it's there, and I think that's what mine's missing. But I wonder if that's what Brent felt. Brent, why did you pick Adam's idea?
It just really came down to like what game feels more BioShocky and what game has a game loop, i.e. a chief mechanic that I feel is compelling. I didn't understand quite how it would work in Shane's, whereas with Adam's it was like, okay, I get this. This is what we like about BioShock made bigger and combined in cool ways that I couldn't have seen coming, but also feel like, oh, of course. They set up the multiverse thing, now they're all mashed together. So, Shane, very cool ideas, but I gotta give it to Adam. Congratulations, Adam.
And there we have it.
Yeah, thank you, Brent. Again, I'm happy to take the win, but thinking about how we're pitching things in the future a little bit harder, I guess.
This is going to change things for me a little bit, because I think I'm going to have to focus more on the characters and like their actual reason for doing things.
It all depends on the game, man. If it's like a Mario game, don't bother too much on why Mario is trying to save the princess or whatever.
Absolutely, right?
Whatever.
Well, we want to thank Brent for joining us and criticizing our ideas. If you want to check out his channel, head over to Brentalfloss on YouTube, or check out a brand new musical that he is creating that's basically off Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. I don't want to get into too much there. Check out his Twitter page or his website. He's talking a lot about it. It's really exciting. I hope I get to see it. He's like the first person I know that's ever personally know that's actually making a musical. So that's really exciting to see.
We should work with him and make a musical episode of Next Game.
Oh yeah, that should be a thing we should do.
Everyone needs to hear us sing. After today's episode, do you feel like you want to go back into the catalog of BioShock / System Shock titles?
Yes, I do. I want to go through and replay System Shock 2, because I never actually beat System Shock 2. I played quite a bit of it, but I want to go there and play the entire game, beginning to end. I feel like that's one of those games where I've kind of missed quite a bit about it. And I do know that we're seeing some remake stuff happening from Night Dive Studios.
And Judas as well is a title that's going to be coming out from Ken Levine. And that's looking so BioShocky.
So you don't have to wait for our BioShock ideas to happen. We're going to get new BioShock
That's
games.
right. BioShock Vita is going to be coming out very soon. We've been assured of this, and I can't wait.
Absolutely. Well, folks, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next game.
Next game.